It says, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you used, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, oh, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you can see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eyes. I am convinced one of the things that can make our life miserable is to be overly concerned with the mistakes and failures of others. Listen to me. I have enough problems with my own life. I don't need to live two lives. I have enough on my plate to handle this one life. How about you? And yet Jesus is saying so many people take a burden of trying to live for somebody else. Oh, I see that mistake, and that person needs to change, and that person needs to shape up over here, and I can see that they need to be converted over here, and I can see this, and before you know it, you get so uptight over everyone else's problems. But what we need to do is mind our own business. Oh, that's a new sermon. Turn to someone and say, mind your own business. Because our business is enough to mind. Enough issues. And I'm convinced if we are overly critical, it has a lot to do with our own internal problems, not the problems of others. It's like a couple I heard that moved into a new neighborhood. The first day, the lady was washing dishes, and as she looked through her kitchen window, she sees the next door neighbor bringing her washed clothes and hanging them. She looked and was horrified. Honey, look at this. She doesn't know how to clean the clothes. This is some of the dirtiest clothes. Doesn't she know how to clean? The next day, the same thing happened. She brings up the clothes. The lady looks through her kitchen window and cannot believe, honey, what is wrong? Does she even use soap? The clothes are still dirty. What's wrong with this woman? Well, this went on for a couple of weeks. Finally, one day, as she's washing dishes, she looks through the kitchen window, and the lady brings up the clothes. She says, honey, something happened. The clothes are clean. I wonder what made the difference. The husband says, well, this morning I got up early and washed our own windows. And I think sometimes we see how dirty others are, but I think we're seeing them through our own dirty lives. And we have a tendency to think everyone else is wrong. They all need to change. But, oh, I'm so clean. I'm so much better than they are. And yet there's a plank in your own eye. I'm not saying we shouldn't help people improve and become better. But at the same time, we don't want to become overly critical. See, if you're overly critical and you have the gift of fault finding. I heard there's the gift of the discerning of spirits. I think I got that because I seem to discern a lot of evil spirits in everybody. Look in the mirror, you're going to find a bunch of them right in you. See, we need to learn not to be overly critical. Don't be like the husband who couldn't stand anything his wife did. He woke up and said, could you cook me 2 eggs? Would you scramble one and then fry the other? She brought him 2 eggs, one scrambled, one fried. He looked and said, I knew you'd fry the wrong egg. See, some of you, there's nothing your spouse could ever do to please you. And this teaching is especially true when it comes to a husband and wife relationship. Because, I want to give you a revelation. You married that person. You know why? I don't know. Tell me. I'm still trying to figure out why. Because you love them. Oh, I don't know if I did after all. I don't know what was in my cabeza. I lost my head. I went loco, man. No, the truth is you love them. And it's because you magnified all of their good attributes. But now you've taken your magnifying glass. And now you're showing their wrinkles and their blemishes. Oh, look at them. Listen, you have the power to magnify their good points. not just the bad. And that's all that happens in a marriage that goes bad. Most of the time. There's a few exceptions, but most of the time. It's not that any of the two really changed so much. It's just that they started to look at the faults and mistakes of each other instead of their good points. See, they still have good points, believe it or not. They still are good. You just don't see it. It's because you have dirty windows. You're looking at them in all the wrong way. Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. 1 Corinthians 13. I want to read, yes, the famous love chapter. I want to look at verse 7 of 1 Corinthians 13. And I want to read this from the Amplified text. Love bears up under anything and everything that comes. And I love this. And here's my favorite part, and is ever ready to believe the best of every person. That's love. Is ever ready to believe the best of every person. And I'm going to tell you, that's our challenge, is to start believing the best in people and not be seeing the worst in people. This can happen in a church. You know, in a church, there's good things and there's going to be bad things, right? Our church is the same way. You can come to our church and choose to see the best. And that is, you come to church and say, man, this is the friendliest bunch of people. They're asking where I came from and who I am and where I work and what are you going to do after the service is over. They're so friendly. Or you can say, man, they are so they're nosy. They just want to know everything about me. I mean, I just want to be. See, you see the same thing. But it's how you look at it. And you know what I've learned is sometimes we're just looking at the other side of the good quality. For example, you're married to a hard worker. Instead of saying, man, he really provides well for his family. Instead, I never spend any time with him. Some of you ladies would say, I like to take a hard worker. I'm tired of looking at the bum. See, we have a tendency to see the very good point, but instead of seeing the good point, we flip the coin and see the other side of possibly the ramification of their good characteristic. Because I've learned that. With every good characteristic, someone could get critical and see something negative about that very good quality. You do that in a church, you do that at a business, with your boss, with fellow employees, with your church, with your pastor. It's how you look at things. But can I tell you, our real problem, though, is we have too much time in our hands, and that's why we're so critical. Paul wrote to some of the young women, and he said in 1 Timothy 5:13, that they get into the habit of being idle and going from house to house, and not only do they become idlers, but also gossips and busybodies, saying things they ought not to. Do we have any busybodies here? You need to be busy with your own life instead of having so much time that you start looking into other people's lives. Nosy people are almost always critical people. No, Pastor, I just want to find out people's lives so I know how to pray. I just want to pray for them. So that's why I'm finding out how their marriage is doing, how that lawsuit is coming along. I just want to see how the business is doing. Really, you're pretending to care. I came across a passage. I read it in the King James, and I finally understood it. I never understood it so much in the NIV. But in Proverbs 18:18, it says, the words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly. I thought, that makes sense. What is he saying? That the words of a talebearer, they're like wounds. It's in the inner bone. You know what he's saying? Is they pretend, oh, I feel so wounded to have to tell this terrible story about so-and-so. I don't mean to gossip, but you know, what they're going through is hurting me so much. But in reality, I just can't wait to tell the juicy story about them. Pretending to feel hurt.